States, we have plenty of different interesting landscapes, from the Rocky Mountains to the Great Lakes. But many of these don't stop at the border. Our northern neighbor, Canada, enjoys many of these same features, as well as several of its own. In this lesson, we will explore the major landforms of Canada and get acquainted with how they sculpt the Canadian landscape. Let's start out west. While the Rocky Mountains are the dominant mountain range in the western U.S., the Rockies are only one of the mountain ranges in western Canada. The northern Rockies join several coastal mountain ranges to create the Canadian Cordillera. The Cordillera is a unique geographical area, extending from the Canadian border all the way north to the Arctic Sea in the Yukon. The mountains of the Cordillera were created millions of years ago when two tectonic plates of the Earth's crust, the North American plate and the Pacific plate, slammed together, creating mountain ranges from the Yukon all the way to the west coast of South America. The mountains and valleys of the Cordillera create a diverse ecosystem, where flora and fauna differ with elevation, and temperatures can vary dramatically. The Cordillera also helped create the next major Canadian landform, the Canadian Plains. These plains get less rain than other regions of Canada because rainstorms are held up by the mountains. However, 500 million years ago, this area, stretching from mountain ranges in Alberta east to Manitoba, was covered by a vast patchwork of inland seas. These seas deposited rich sediment which supports the plant life that covers this area. In the south, the landscape looks very similar to the plains of the western U.S. Large, sweeping grasslands which are often cleared by farmers. In the northern regions, these grasslands give way to scrubby, low-level tree and bush growth. The next major landform as we move east is the Canadian Shield. Also known as the Precambrian Shield, the Canadian Shield covers nearly half the country. Stretching from north of the Arctic Circle in Canada's Northwest Territories, south and east nearly to the U.S. border, and the lowlands of Atlantic Canada, the Canadian Shield is an enormous geological feature. The feature is the world's oldest exposed bedrock. Where the rugged shield isn't immediately visible, the shield is covered by vast forests and pockmarked with numerous lakes and ponds. North of the shield is the Canadian Arctic. Though a portion of the continental landmass is considered Arctic, the vast majority of the Canadian Arctic is broken up into a large island archipelago, including Ellesmere Island, Baffin Island, and hundreds of others, collectively known as the Canadian Arctic Archipelago. Making up roughly a quarter of Canada's landmass, the Arctic islands remain frozen for almost the entire year. The Arctic summer is short, some years only a few weeks long, and little if anything grows during the period. The effects of global warming are most drastically felt here, where ice accumulation has decreased and passages between islands once frozen over year-round are becoming navigable. The next major landform that shapes Canada's landscapes is the Great Lakes. Sure, while we may think of the Great Lakes as the purview of Michigan and other Midwestern states, 4 of the 5 Great Lakes reside half in Canada and half in the United States. These lakes shape the weather of Canada even more than they do in the United States. For example, because of the prevailing winds off the lakes, land to the north and east of the lakes gets considerable lake-effect snowfall in the winter. Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, for instance, averages over 126 inches of snowfall each year. All the Great Lakes eventually empty into the St. Lawrence, a massive river which conducts all that fresh water through eastern Canada to the Atlantic Ocean. Some of the first European explorations and settlements in North America were along the St. Lawrence, and it remains a major center of population. Indeed, the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence affect millions of Canadians. For example, Canada's 2 largest cities, Toronto and Montreal, lie on the shores of Lake Ontario and the St. Lawrence respectively. Canada is the second largest country in the world by land area, and its landforms are enormous as well. The Canadian Cordillera, for example, joins several mountain ranges and forms the northern leg of a chain of mountains that stretches all the way to the tip of South America. These mountains also have an impact on the rest of the country as well, as their holding up of rain patterns has helped create the vast interior plains of Canada. To the east, the Canadian Shield, the world's largest exposed bedrock, is home to thriving forest land and numerous lakes, while the Canadian Arctic Archipelago to the north remains frozen most of the year. In southern Ontario and Quebec, the Great Lakes and the St. Lawrence River define the landscape.